Sony announced on July 1st, 2026, that it would stop releasing physical PlayStation games beginning in 2028. Before that, Sony announced it would be removing hundreds of digital movies from customers' libraries due to an expired licensing agreement, which made a lot of people angry. To be honest, I think a lot of people are exhausted by the digital ownership conversation. We've heard the arguments before and have seen the two sides of streaming versus physical media kind of clash and go at it. And the digital people being like, you will own nothing and you'll like it. For horror fans, this isn't a new conversation. We've been having it for years. Because horror fans learned something a long time ago. If you don't preserve horror, there's no guarantee that someone else will. Hey everybody, how you doing? It is I, Brandy, otherwise known as the Terrorific Lady, and welcome back to Retro Horror School, where we discuss, dissect, and analyze horror from the 1970s through the 2010s, and talk about horror like it matters, because it does. In this video, the events in it are a recent development, but the argument itself has been going on for quite some time. So let's start with what happened. On July 1st, Sony came out with an article in their blog that said that they were going to stop producing their games on physical release starting in January of 2028. And they cited statistics that mentioned customers changing preferences towards digital-based media. And before that, Sony announced that 551 movie titles would no longer be available due to an expiring licensing agreement with Studio Canal. Now, whether you're a gamer or an avid movie watcher or both, this news has sparked the same question across the board. Do we really own the media that we pay for? Here's a distinction. When you buy something digitally, what you're usually buying is a license to access that particular content under certain terms, not permanent ownership in the way that a physical copy provides. Most of the time you never notice because your movies and games stay there. They're fine, and everything is okay until it isn't. And that is why so many people are upset. So why does it seem that horror fans are some of the loudest voices in this conversation? Because horror has been dealing with preservation problems for decades. For us, physical media is preservation. Horror has always existed a little outside the mainstream. It's controversial and niche. Sometimes it's censored. Sometimes studios don't know what to do with it. And because of that, horror history is filled with stories of movies disappearing, being altered, or becoming incredibly difficult to watch. Take 28 Days Later. For years, it wasn't available to stream in many regions because of distribution rights. One of the most influential zombie films of the 21st century, and people couldn't watch it legally. You had to either pirate it or tried to get an out-of-print copy and hope for the best. Then there's Event Horizon. Fans have wanted a director's cut for decades. Unfortunately, the missing footage was discovered in a Transylvanian salt mine. Not kidding, this is real, look it up. A Transylvanian salt mine where it had deteriorated beyond all recognition. And once it's gone, it's gone. Rob Zombie has also talked about footage cut from House of a Thousand Corpses that just disappeared. And that's why there hasn't been a director's cut. Because once material disappeared, there's no guarantee that it will ever come back. A very prominent example is the TV show Willow that was on Disney Plus. They only gave it one season and canceled it, and the show just completely disappeared from their platform. Gone. And David Weiner also discussed in my interview that I had with him on In the Search of Darkness 1970s, how many horror films had to be edited for television.
The films that I saw were cut to shreds. They were hacked to bits.
Literally, it was a massacre.
Yeah. So the 4:30 movie has a bunch of commercials, and it's a 90-minute time slot. So you could take any movie and fit it in there. Well, you only get about 70, 75 minutes of movie. You know, they have 15, 20 minutes of commercials. So they just hacked that to bits. But I would revisit so many of these movies now, contemporary times, like, oh gosh, why don't I remember this? And why don't I remember that? Well, it's because they were, you know, mercilessly excised and left on the cutting room floor. And also it was television.
Yeah.
versus the movie theater, and you couldn't show certain things, so you just combine the two. And I feel like I'm seeing a bunch of brand new films.
The version people saw wasn't always the version that filmmakers made. Now, yes, there is absolutely nostalgia involved. A lot of us grew up wandering video stores, Blockbuster, Movie Gallery, Hollywood Video, local mom and pop stores, just looking at and admiring the video covers. Memories. That experience matters, but nostalgia isn't the whole story. Boutique labels have become some of horror's greatest preservationists. While major studios moved on, companies like Arrow Video, Scream Factory, Criterion, and Vinegar Syndrome have restored forgotten movies, rescued obscure films, produced new commentaries, made documentaries, interviewed cast and crew, and created releases that almost feel like mini film school courses. Physical media preserves the history surrounding it. So when people ask, why do horror fans still buy Blu-rays? Or why do horror fans still buy DVDs? Or why do horror fans still buy fill in the blank for your preferred format here? This is why, yeah, we're nostalgic, but we've also seen what happens when physical media disappears entirely. We've seen rights issues, we've seen censorship, we've seen lost footage, we've seen films become impossible to find. We have been through this before. And as Guillermo del Toro says, collectors of physical media were like the curators. Horror fans have been preparing for this conversation for years. It is about preservation. Because if you love weird, niche, controversial, or historically important physical media, never assume that a corporation will preserve it for you. Sometimes they will, but sometimes they won't. Case in point, Sony. And horror history has taught us that trusting corporations is a gamble. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Now, I would like to hear from you. Do you still collect physical media? And has Sony's news on what they're doing changed the way that you think about digital ownership? And what are some of your favorite places to find physical media? Drop them below, and maybe people who are looking for physical media will have their new favorite places to go to find it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with fellow fans of physical media, fellow horror fans, and if you're a horror fan, I will have a playlist of videos coming up for you to enjoy. As always, thank you so much for being here. Class is dismissed for now, but I'll see you next time. Bye!